You were 14, small for your age, too soft, your mother used to say. The last thing you remember of home is the cold rice in your mouth and the sound of the cart's wheels grinding against the gravel. Your father didn't look at you when he handed you over. Not once. His hands were trembling. Not from shame, from hunger. The merchant didn't speak. Just dropped coins into your father's palm. Silver. Enough to keep the rest of them alive another month. Maybe two. You tried to scream, but your mother slapped you across the face so hard your ear rang. Live, she whispered with cracked lips. Don't waste this. That night, the stars didn't shine. That meant your body was pleasing. That meant you'd survive longer. They kept you bound with silk ropes, soft and perfumed. Pretty like a festival doll. Someone joked. A good omen, they said. People stared. Samurai banners fluttered above black stone walls. You reached the fortress. The last place your name would ever be spoken. Some pitied. Some grinned. Candlelight. They didn't need to. You screamed this time, and they did keep going. A table of iron tools. A man in crimson stood waiting. His face was blank. As though he were about to trim a plant, you staggered. Stiff silk, tight at the chest, cinched at the waist. You couldn't breathe, fevered, throat torn, body mutilated. You reached down between your legs and felt only silence. But you weren't allowed to loosen it. Nurses fed you thin broth, taught you to bow, to walk without sound, to smile without showing teeth. You saw other boys come in, and you saw some never rise again. A rod came down on your hand, hard. A servant whispered, if you scream, they keep going. You didn't scream. Your fingers swelled within minutes. You passed through village after village. By the third day, your wrists were raw. You bit down your sobs until your jaw ached, not cleanly, with dull blades and mockery. Tufts fell to the ground like fallen birds. You bled behind your ears. On the sixth day, the scent of cedar and blood drifted into your nostrils. The cart jerked to a halt. Guards in lacquered armor yanked you down. Behind you, the gates slammed shut. You would never walk back through them. They stripped you in front of a dozen men. The air stung your bare skin. You tried to cover yourself. They shaved your head. Then came the bath, boiling water, salt, scrub it until your skin peeled. You bit your lip until you tasted blood. A robe was thrown over you. Then the worst came. You were led to a small chamber. They didn't explain. You woke on straw. 4 days, you drifted between pain and sleep. When you could stand, they painted your face. A mirror was held up. You didn't recognize the ghost inside it. You looked like someone important, pale, polished, perfect, but underneath the silk, you were still bleeding. And you knew, finally, what this place was, a golden cage, with knives 4 bars. The inner court smelled of incense and rotting fear. You walked in line with the others, eyes down, hands folded. Voices silenced. His skin turned purple. He never moved again, always watched. There were rules. 100 of them. Don't speak unless ordered. Don't look a samurai in the eye. Don't let your shadow fall across the noble's path. You broke one. You disappeared. Simple. Polished sandals that kicked you in the ribs if they weren't shining enough. One boy, younger than you, whispered something during evening prayers. The next morning, his bedding was empty. No one spoke his name again, or a boy made to sound like one. Another spilled tea on the chamberlain's sleeve. He was forced to kneel in the courtyard from dusk till dawn, stripped to the waist in winter wind. You kept your eyes sharp and your mouth shut. The hierarchy was brutal. Older servants slapped the younger ones. those with favor-hearted scraps of meat. Some smiled to your face and planted knives in your back. You noticed who smiled too wide, who whispered too often, who carried bruises hidden under layers of silk. You listened more than you spoke, when to speak, and when to vanish, and always leave someone else to take the blame. There were favorites among the samurai. Soft-skinned boys who had learned to flatter and amuse. They laughed on command. They swallowed their shame. You weren't one of them, not yet. You knelt 4 hours on a polished floor of black stone, heart pounding. No one spoke to you. Your nights were cold, your feet were blistered. You washed blood from the floors. Cleaned armor still warm from battle. Fear became your shadow. It taught you when to hide, when to kneel, when to disappear. She looked down at you and smiled. One night, as you lay curled in your thin bedding, you heard sobs behind the screens. A girl, you'd practiced this moment 1,000 times in your mind. For one heartbeat, you saw the knife beneath her silk. You didn't look, you didn't move, you learned. In the Lord's fortress, the ones who asked questions were always the first to bleed. You stopped flinching. Your footsteps made no sound. Your expression never cracked. You watched, quietly, as the others fought for scraps of favor. That's how you survived. An older servant named Hisao noticed, wrinkled, limping, nearly invisible. No one paid him attention. That was his power. He showed you how to read moods, the twitch of a samurai's eyebrow, the way a noble woman held her fan. Keep your ears open and your heart closed. He whispered once. You obeyed. He wept. You watched from the shadows. Then came the test. You were summoned to the Lord's private wing. No reason given, just a word from the steward. At dusk, a figure entered. Lady Akiko, the Lord's youngest concubine. Pale as snow, lips like blood. You, pour my tea. Your hands didn't shake. But as you reached for the pot, a gust of wind caught your sleeve. The tray trembled, the cup fell. Silence. Her eyes locked onto yours. Then she laughed. Clean it up. You bowed. Yes, my lady. Later that night, a boy was beaten in your place. The one who prepared the tray. It wasn't fair. It was survival. When the steward passed you in the hallway, he said only this: you are no longer a child, but a smiling blade. You began to rise. Small things at first. A better sleeping mat. Warm water in the mornings. No more beatings. Then, whispers in the corridors. The boy who made Lady Akiko laugh. The boy who never gets punished. The boy who listens. They gave you tasks no one else could do. Delivering secret messages. Managing small bribes. Listening at keyholes. One day, a hairpin in your sash was coated with a poison that left your fingers shaking for 3 days. You felt the thickness, sensed something wrong. You didn't ask questions. You swapped scrolls in the hallway. Hours later, the recipient was arrested for treason. The steward vanished that night. You never saw him again. You didn't report it. You smiled through the pain. You became the voice behind closed doors and the shadow that learned every weakness. But power is not armor. It's perfume, sweet, fleeting, dangerous. Jealous eyes turned toward you. Another day, the old steward who once trained you gave you a sealed scroll to deliver. Lady Akiko summoned you more often. Sometimes for tasks, sometimes just to speak. She liked riddles, poetry, games of the mind. I should have been a man, she said once, sipping plum wine. One evening, you found him half dead beside the bathhouse. Beaten, teeth missing, a blade hidden under his tongue. You should have been a girl. We'd rule this place together, bright, Clever. The ink stains on your fingers never washed away. You ate alone. You lit a single candle and remembered a rice field, your mother's cracked voice, the slap that saved your life. Slept alone, trusted no one, too thin, reminded you of the boy you used to be. He smiled too easily. You taught him better. He learned. One night, she gave you a name. A court official. He insulted me, she said. Fix it. New banners. A new warlord. But they kept you. Every dynasty needs a shadow. You slept with your eyes half open, your back to the wall, and your smile sharper than steel. You said nothing. But 3 days later, a rumor began that the official kept foreign coins under his pillow. He was dragged out at dawn. Lady Akiko smiled. You're learning, your own, whispered into ears that ruled provinces. Controlled silks, schedules, and secrets. You were never seen, only felt. Like the wind before a storm, but not fast enough. The boy who once wept when you spilled tea now served in the kitchens. You carried him to the healer. He didn't survive. You buried him yourself. No marker, no name, only stone. Your silence grew teeth. Elegant, fearless. You no longer feared knives in the dark. Years passed. You rose higher. The Lord grew old. His hand shook when he held his sword. Lady Akiko vanished one winter. No one dared ask why. You trained a younger servant once. Eventually, the palace changed. Your body weakened. Your legs ached. One night, snow fell outside your chamber. You whispered a name you hadn't spoken in decades. No one answered. The boy who cried in chains was gone. The blade had grown too sharp. And yet, something inside you still watched the snow and felt it was beautiful. A page entered. A child bowed deeply. Master, he said. The Lord requests your presence. You rose slowly. Your reflection in the polished bronze basin was hollow-eyed, not human. You had become the thing that survived an entire dynasty, a shadow, a ghost made of silk and blood, and you walked, again, into the dark.